What is up, cyber and crypto homies? Today is Friday, July the 19th of 2024, and this is episode 116 of the Cybersecurity and Cryptocurrency Podcast. I'm your host, Eric English. All the views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely my opinions and do not reflect the opinions of my employer. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at CyberCryptoGuy. Okay, so lots of news-related stuff this week in the cyber world, and I wanted to do a small continuation of the personal security side of things before we jump into some news-related articles. So on the personal security side of things, we talked about, your home network and all that kind of fun stuff last episode. Some of the things I didn't touch on too terribly much were masking. So there's lots of different ways to mask your email address, mask your phone number, fun stuff like that. So there are plenty of services out there for masking. Cloaked is one of those if you're looking for one to start using. Abind Blur also has similar kind of services where you can create, kind of one-off phone numbers, fun stuff like that. There's also things like privacy.com that allow you to create debit cards, masked debit cards that you can turn on and off at your leisure. So those are super cool and easy to use. And privacy.com is free. Blur and Cloaked are not free. But the point here is that you can also go the free route for masking your phone number. It's sort of like masking, not completely, but you can get a Google Voice number for free. So that's sort of like masking. That way you're not giving out your actual phone number to everybody in the world. Now, if you pay for one of those masking services, then you can generate a phone number and tie it to a specific account and yada, yada, yada. But if you don't want to pay, then Google Voice is a good alternative, at least on the phone number side of things. Now, masking emails is a lot different, and so you probably will have to pay for a service like a Cloaked or Blur if you want the masked email part of it. But with the masked phone number piece, to me that's huge because everything you sign up for, they want your phone number and they want to verify it with a text message. And so with these masking services, you can still receive and send text messages and all that good stuff and not give out your actual phone number. Another strategy for phone number related stuff is to sign up for a prepaid phone service like Mint. Mint Mobile, owned by Ryan Reynolds and company. They don't ask you, well, they ask you for a name, an address, and not phone number, but name and address, and you got to pay for it, of course, but they don't really care if your name and address is real, which makes it really nice. If you want to get a prepaid cell phone service, you can pay for the entire year up front, and you're good for the whole year. Now, you do have to probably buy your phone outright, and there's other caveats, right? But you can give Mint Mobile any name and address that you want and pay with, some sort of a masking service like privacy.com. And you can, hide all of your information from Mint Mobile and have basically an anonymous cell phone, essentially, and you're paid for that entire year. So there are a lot of different ways to do it. And so those are just a couple that I was thinking of that I don't think I brought up on the last episode. Some other stuff like the email masking, I think that's email masking is great if you have a password manager. Otherwise, it's hard to keep up with, I would say, because you may forget, what email you use with whatever site and fun stuff like that. Now, typically on these masking services for email, you can tag it with a certain, website, or you can name it accordingly, right? But it can just get a little messy without the password manager, because then you have to go look up, okay, what email address did I use with this site again? Oh, there it is, and copy and paste and then punch in a password. But if you just put it all directly into your password manager, that makes it super easy, way more convenient, and all that fun stuff. Some other strategies, I think we talked about masking, your home address, right, by getting a P.O. box, and you can still use the street address of the USPS office and give it a unit number for your P.O. box. And so those sites that won't take a P.O. box for an address, you can use the street address of the postal service where you have your P.O. box. It's an additional $20 a year or whatever it is. So or you can get a PMB as well. You can get those through like UPS and places like that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can mask, your personal information as best you can. You also, this is kind of a duh, right? But just, don't share everything in the world on social media and limit your social media accounts, right? There's no better way to protect your privacy than to not share things publicly. It's kind of a duh, right? But a lot of people are on, Facebook, and they share their whole life. And if you're going to, just make sure you have your profile set to private. And Facebook has a ton of privacy settings now where you can lock that down pretty well. So another thing too, with AI being all the rage now, think about your privacy when it comes to AI. Think about the things that you're asking your AI to do. Is there anything sensitive that you're asking AI to do or look up for you or summarize for you or whatever? So yes, it's super convenient, super cool, but it also does come with some risks to think about and consider when you're using any kind of AI, whether it's an assistant kind of device or the AI on your phone, or hell, AI is everywhere now. So any kind of AI, just got to be careful with what you do there too, and make sure you're not sharing sensitive information in there, because those AI companies get hacked too. So another thing to watch out for, of course. So on to some news-related things. Today was the CrowdStrike debacle, and this caused worldwide outages, blue screens of death on Windows machines, anything from, servers. As long as it's not a 2008 server, anything above that, you're pretty much going to get a blue screen. If you had 2008 servers and 03 servers, hey, you're actually in the clear. The one time it's good to not upgrade. But the whole thing has been a complete and utter disaster for CrowdStrike and for everyone, everybody in help desk, everybody, in IT in general. This has been a day worth scrapping and starting over if we can. But CrowdStrike pushed an update overnight last night. This was a driver update, a .sys file, and the CrowdStrike is plugged into the kernel, and it uses that with drivers. And so they pushed a bad driver update that had some bug in the code and started causing blue screens, and CrowdStrike corrected it. However, those updates were already going out and already affecting computers and already blue screening computers. So I don't understand personally why there was a driver update pushed like this in the middle of the night. You would think that they would release, these driver updates with the larger application update itself, not a driver update by itself. So that was a little strange to me. I'm not sure what the deal is there, if that's a standard practice, but ideally we'd be able to control when these updates hit, not just, hey, everybody, we're going to push the updates whether you like it or not, and we have no capability to, test or anything like that. So with all the people using CrowdStrike in the world, I guess here's some good information gathering for hackers. Now every hacker knows what company is using CrowdStrike with everybody that was down. Airlines, banks, you name it, there were outages. Law enforcement, first responders, there was 911 systems that were down. I mean, you name it. This has been a crazy day today. And really, for me, the takeaway is being able to control those updates, and not just allow the vendor to push this kind of update on you without some sort of testing. Because this is a huge outage, and they're saying it's worldwide. This even made your local news because it was so bad. And the fix was to go into safe mode and delete this .sys file. And so that's not exactly ideal for all the people that work remote and may not have local administrator access on their computer. How do you get those people back up and running? Well, it just so happens too that there's a couple other tricks to the trade that they were saying you can do. You can hardwire to your network and let your computer try to boot up normally, and hopefully when it's booting up normally, if it connects to the network fast enough, since it's hardwired, that you would get the fix from CrowdStrike sooner. versus if you're on wireless, and wireless is one of the last services to start up after Windows boots and you log in. Well, if you're hardwired, hopefully you can catch that update a little quicker. So that was kind of one of the tricks that people were using. But then guess what? You got to throw this in the mix too. For security people, we have BitLocker, right, for hard drive encryption. Well, guess what? You needed your encryption key, your BitLocker key, to boot the system after you deleted this driver file in most cases. So talk about throwing another wrench into things. I mean, this creates so much more work, and man, you got to feel for the support desk people today, because this has just been a complete and utter nightmare. And then trying to walk people through this over the phone, people that aren't very technical, trying to get him to go into safe mode and find this file and delete it, and then reading out a BitLocker recovery key over the phone. It's very, very difficult day today for everyone in the IT world and security world too. And, CrowdStrike's stock price took quite the hit today. I think it's 16 or 18% hit so far. And it's midday basically on Friday. So yeah, it's been quite the day that we would all like to forget. And hopefully CrowdStrike has, a better option moving forward to control when these updates go out, so that people have the opportunity to test and we don't take down, entire systems across the globe here, because so many people use CrowdStrike because they're one of the best. And I believe this is not the first time CrowdStrike has had this issue. Now, I think the first one wasn't quite this bad, but this one was much worse. And I don't remember the first one, to be honest. It's been so long ago, probably 3 to 4 years ago, I want to say. But man, this has just been a rough day for everybody. So I hope you're not using CrowdStrike. If you're not, you are in the clear. You don't have to deal with this. But this also caused outages at Microsoft. So now we know Microsoft uses CrowdStrike. A bunch of stuff in Azure and all kinds of outages just everywhere. So it's been a heck of a day. Pretty much anybody that works on a computer today really probably wasn't able to work very effectively. So on to some other news-related stuff. There's been a pretty big vulnerability in OpenSSH that affected quite a few products, and there's still fixes going out for that as well. It affected Citrix products. It affected a bunch of flavors of Linux. It affected, you name it, all kinds of things, right? So as you can imagine, people use SSH to access a lot of their web servers or Linux servers or whatever it is. Well, this bug basically allowed for remote code execution. It's a buffer overflow type bug, and basically you can get root access if you're able to exploit it. So anybody that had that facing the internet was highly vulnerable to this. And yeah, there's exploit code out there and everything. So that's another big one, vulnerability wise, to watch out for. Make sure that you're patching that, and or you just take those SSH nodes off of the internet in the meantime while you look for a patch. But there are patches and fixes available for that OpenSSH bug in pretty much all affected applications. So reach out to your vendor and see if your application was affected. Another big news topic was AT&T. Unfortunately, they're in the news again. Man, it just keeps getting worse for AT&T. They came out recently and said that in 2022 and into 2023, some hackers got in and stole customer data for pretty much all their customers. This included phone call logs and I guess text message metadata effectively. So it didn't have the contents of the text messages, but it showed who you texted, when you texted, all that kind of fun stuff. And from what they're saying, this was also caused by the Snowflake incidents. And again, that wasn't on Snowflake. That was on each person that had their accountants, or each company that had their account in Snowflake that didn't use multi-factor, which shame on you, AT&T, and all these other companies. Advanced Auto Parts, by the way, was also hit really big with a data breach, also involving Snowflake. So the Snowflake fallout continues to happen, but the AT&T stuff is quite ridiculous because we're going back to 2022 in some cases. And so this is just wild because, it makes you wonder, how the heck does this keep happening to AT&T? How does this keep happening to any of these companies, knowing good and well that cybersecurity is a big deal, right? And if you're a huge company, you're a huge target. And AT&T is definitely one of those big targets. So, and I have to correct myself real quick. The data breach happened in April of this year, not in 2022. They pulled data from 2022 into 2023, but the breach actually happened in April, and they're just now telling us about it in July. So not good. should in general, but again, it still goes back to, poor security. Multi-factor is such a simple thing, and we still don't do it for some reason. It's really mind-boggling in some cases why we don't have basic security controls. Multi-factor should be the standard no matter what on every single system, and there shouldn't be any way to turn it off. But we continue to leave ourselves vulnerable, and here we go. The fallout continues with Snowflake. And in some kind of crossover to crypto, there's apparently an Indian cryptocurrency exchange called WazerX, and they had a security breach, and the bad guys stole $230 million in cryptocurrency. Wow, that's a whole bunch of money there, folks. And if you are one to use these crypto exchanges, make sure that you do not leave your funds in the exchange for too long, because stuff like this happens all the time. We see all these exchanges getting hacked, and then a lot of them eventually just shut down. Like NiceHash isn't an exchange necessarily, but they got a really big hack. You name the exchange, they've been hacked essentially. So yeah, if you're going to use an exchange, make sure you put enough money out there that you're comfortable with losing, because if they get hacked and all that money gets stolen, there's nothing you can do. And, FTX, right? Look at them. They didn't get hacked necessarily, but again, it's just leaving your money in those exchanges, and then there's some sort of fallout. Either they get hacked or whatever it is, right? Like FTX was quite the debacle. So anything can happen with these exchanges, and we've seen this for years now, unfortunately. But if you're going to put your money out there, make sure you're comfortable with losing that money, because it's very likely that you will lose that money. Any kind of cloud-based cryptocurrency storage is not ideal. You want to own your private keys. If somebody else has your private keys, whatever cloud provider, if they have your private keys, they own your crypto, not you. So make sure you've got a wallet that you have the keys for, only you have the keys for, and it's not some online exchange somewhere. So some interesting crossover news there. And by the way, into crypto kind of stuff, the price of Bitcoin has been slowly rising this week. We hit 67,000 today, which is great to see. It was down quite a bit. We were all the way back down to, I believe it was 57,000 last week. So we're up, almost 10,000 this week. So the markets are starting to rebound a little bit, and hopefully we'll continue the upswing. Ethereum's at 3,500. That's also great to see as well. So keep an eye on that. I still think there's some sort of a bull run coming. I'm still kind of wondering, when is this bull run going to happen this year? It typically has already happened by now. But we're not quite there yet. All right, folks, that's all I've got for today. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk again